It was perhaps extraordinarily positive, and we should celebrate the positives, that Russia and America did not veto the UN Security Council resolution, which calls for urgent expanded humanitarian aid in Gaza and for the conditions for a sustainable cessation of hostilities. Now, what exactly that means when Netanyahu is plunging his way through the tunnels and the basic ground of the Gaza Strip, I don't know. The US and Russia abstained, but they didn't veto, and 13 other members voted in favour of the measure, which has been humanitarian focused, and I think it would be impossible to for any country not to call for conditions of sustainable cessation of hostilities. I think that's a perfectly reasonable statement, but it is vacuous, and it was. Is that as far as we can get? We should have the same resolution, really, in Ukraine, but there doesn't seem to be that will to go in that direction. There is an opportunity now for more direct diplomacy, but while Hamas has made it absolutely clear that no more hostages will be released until the ground war is over and is called off, it produces an extraordinary impasse, and in some ways it justifies terrorism. So I don't see that with Netanyahu's hawkish approach that he could possibly countenance any relaxation of the ground offensive on those terms, given his aggression so far. I don't see it as being a realistic option. However desirable it may be, it doesn't seem to be realistic. And in the same way that he resisted calls for a ceasefire, which again I thought was a foolish call. Instead of calling for a ceasefire, we should have been calling, and we should still be calling, for the gates to be opened so that humanitarian aid, so that aid can be targeted to where it's needed. There are many gates around Gaza. All that is needed is for those gates to be opened and manned by Israeli sentries and Israeli posts, so that they can check what's going in, what's going out, but so that it can be targeted and so that it can be delivered to people who need it. As for striking and bombing people and killing people in churches and places of worship, well, it's heinous. And there will be, I'm afraid, there will be a reckoning. Both America and Israel are beginning to find it very hard to defend the continued ground operation. I think that ground operation conducted by a single nation, by Israel, quickly turned into a revenge operation. It was couched in the language of revenge, and whether the Israeli soldiers, the IDF, went out of their way not to kill civilians, which I'm sure they actually did, the fact that so many civilians have been killed, and the fact that that so much carpet bombing has taken place, makes the efforts to play by the rules look rather absurd. It just doesn't look genuine, it doesn't look real, and it's very easy. Israel is hoisted its own petard. It's very easy to accuse Israel of aggression and of committing war crimes. And indeed, there are certainly a list of war crimes that can be credited to Israel. And I think maybe I need to do another video to identify those more clearly. This is not in any way to diminish the guilt of Hamas. I don't think it's up to Hamas to necessarily to agree to another truce. I don't think it's up to Israel to do so. I think it's up to both Hamas and Israel to find a roadmap to peace and to be helped in that, because 20,000 civilian deaths is unacceptable. And one civilian death is unacceptable. But while Hamas continues to hold on to its hostages, it is clearly an adversary. And while Netanyahu continues to ignore the release of the hostages in the pursuit of his revenge, I'm afraid the hostages' lives are in danger. All Gaza's 2.2 million people are experiencing a level of food crisis, with 576,000 over suffering catastrophic starvation, or at risk of catastrophic starvation, according to a UN report released on Thursday. And with deliveries to Gaza largely cut off, the UN World Food Programme believes that 90% of Gaza's population is regularly going without food for a day, and there needs to be a surge and a targeted surge in aid immediately. Otherwise, the world is looking at serious famine and serious disease, and this will be laid at the feet of the Israeli command, and Israel will be held responsible, and individuals will be accounted responsible and brought to trial. I have no doubt at all.